How's it going, interwebs? Matt Sardo here, Monkeys Fighting Robots. And man, I was kind of, it's a rainy day. Had some dad issue dreams last night about my kids and was totally in like I wouldn't say negative, but definitely like a little on the depressed side. And I was like, shit, being a dad is tough and getting old is tough. And like all that stuff that kind of goes in with being in your mid 40s or late 40s. I think I'm in the late 40s. That's depressing. And then I get this book, MIDLIFE, or How to Hero at 50. And it spoke to me. Oh my God, did it speak to me? It was like having a personal therapy session on a Monday afternoon about being a parent and being a man in their late 40s, being a Gen Xer. Like, oh my God, did this book just speak to me on a billion levels, like a billion levels. And it's really good. And I have so many questions and I'm so excited for this series. And if you are a Gen Xer like me, this is a must buy. Like, definitely just call your comic book store and be like, put this on my list. I apologize if I butcher anybody's names, but the writer is Brian Buccellato, the amazing Italian artist Stefano Simeone, and then Hassan is the award-winning letterist on this book. And it's beautiful, and the vibe on this book is amazing. It's the epitome of Gen X, like that feeling that you kind of have as a Gen Xer in your body of being I don't know. I'm at a loss for it. Because I literally watched Pump Up the Volume Saturday, and I watched it, and I was like inspired and depressed at the same time. Because I was like, this movie came out in 1990, and we have like all these ideas in it, and then I think of where we are now, and I'm like, ah. And then I got Brian right here with MIDLIFE, just right there feeling the same way with me. And then there's a comic book that feels the way that I feel. I'm dumbfounded. I'm at a loss for words. And that's really bad because I have this microphone and I'm supposed to tell you why MIDLIFE is this most amazing book that you need to read like right now. I'm so excited because I'm looking at the email. It has issue 2 there because I read the first issue and I was like, oh, I need issue 2. Oh, man. But Stefano's art gives this a super amazing vibe. And I would love to know if they like watched Spike Lee movies or certain films to get like inspiration for like color palettes and vibe of it. Because they mentioned Do the Right Thing in this. And this is, set in LA, and which is completely different than the East Coast. Like, so how you encapsulate that environment in a comic book is a complete different color palette. And I'm just looking at the preview pages, and there's just like nice browns and oranges. And then you have like some blues and some purples. Like, there's some really good stuff in this book, artistic wise. I had to get some water, getting a little choked up there. So we have Brian's words, which I didn't know Brian spoke for a generation, but apparently he is, and he does it quite eloquently. And that weight, I talk about this, like, they don't prepare you for your 40s. If anybody who's talked to me, like ever since I've been in my 40s, I kind of talk about this feeling of you're in your 20s, everything's chaos. You're in your 30s, you kind of figure out what's going on. And then you're in your 40s and everything starts going to shit, whether it be health, people dying, people, things just falling apart, getting fired from your job, like all these different elements where you're like, oh, I got this shit together. And then your 40s hit and you're like, I got my shit together, but they're throwing all this shit at me to make me fail, because that's kind of like life. And you just got to keep ducking and dodging. And nobody really explains that to you as a kid, or maybe you just weren't listening to the instructions on life. But the 40s is where things start getting a little wonky. In where you're like, oh man, I got this, like I said, I got this together. And then like the curveballs start coming at you really hard. Midlife really encapsulates that. Like you have such a feeling for the main character, Ruben. Like he is carrying a weight, and you can visually see the weight that this gentleman is carrying. And then you can emotionally feel it as well through the words. I was not expecting to get punched in the face with the heavy on a Monday afternoon. And that's what Brian and Stefano did to me. They punched me in the face with the heavy on a rainy Monday afternoon in September. And I'm like blown away. I'm just bonkers crazy. Let's get to the important things. Midlife #1 goes on sale October 11th. So we're a few weeks out from that. I'm dumbfounded. I'm really dumbfounded with this book, and I apologize for this. I was not ready for this. All right, let's go look at some pages. The 1997 thing, I think, is the first thing that just like really hammered me in the face. I was like, oh man, they're talking about Batman. Talking about Batman and Robin, and like we know I was like, oh, they're gonna really go into this, and they do. And I love the setup of like the walk away. It's something you've seen in cinema before. Like you have the three friends talking, and then they kind of sit around the round table. Like it's very, like Clerks-y, like all the different Swingers-y, like all the different 90s films you've seen previously that you have this kind of like round table of mockery of pop culture. But then the heavy kicks in of like, oh, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And that is really tough. I do like the panels where you have Ruben talking and then you see like the death of his dad. I mean, we're just coming off a 9/11 anniversary. So again, like these things really hit home emotionally to me. But again, if you're a compassionate person, these will really hit home to you. I mean, like we've all lost someone. And if you haven't, good for you. But like, this expression that Stefano puts on Ruben, and like you see the angst in his face and the turmoil he's going through while he's hanging out with his friends. The emotions that Stefano puts on the faces of his characters is brilliant. It's just, this is Eisner worthy. This is best comic book of the year worthy. The art in this is top notch. And then, like I said, the color palette that they use really changes and gives you a good feel of emotional weight. You get to 2023, you hit with these blues because it's night, but it also like changes the dynamic of the comic book. You know that this has shifted to a different time frame, and we are going in a completely different color palette. And then it slowly softens up with the pinks and purple pages. And then the family dynamic that goes on through there. Like you just see Ruben, and he's just like, he's very clutched together. And I like the way that Stefano is drawing him in this first issue. And you can just, the way he carries himself. And it's one of those things that we talk about with comic books. I mean, you see how Clark Kent carries himself, and you see how Superman carries himself. Like they're completely different things, and they tell a completely different story. And this is the same thing with how Ruben carries himself, walking through life with the weight of the world on his shoulders. And every dad in his, late 40s, early 50s knows exactly what Ruben is feeling. It's man, this is a home run for me on feelings here. And I feel like the more I talk, the more I might actually like ruin this review. So I'm gonna stop right here because I want you to go to your comic book shop, talk and tell them to put Midlife #1 on your pull list. It comes out October 11th from Image Comics. And I want you to be warned that you're going to get punched in the face with emotions that you might not be ready for. Like that's what I'm going to let you know. So emotionally prepare yourself for it, or don't, and just enjoy the ride like me. Because like, I'm again dumbfounded and blown away about how amazing this book was. And I'm so glad that it's in my life, and I'm so glad that comic books are in my life. Like it's so good. Take care, guys.